Let's go to the creative and divergent piece here. Divergent thinking is the idea that if you want to have a good idea, have lots of ideas. And so when we talk about creativity, oftentimes people mistake creativity for artistic. And you can have so many different places where you can be creative. And creativity is that skill set that you have. Innovation actually is more of an organizational capacity to bring ideas together and bring them into the marketplace. Creativity is this generation of ideas. Oftentimes it's colliding ideas together. That's how you find novel things. Sometimes it's seeing new uses for old things. So I'm gonna run through the creative habits, and then we'll do the same thing. Be thinking about which ones you want to, which are you good at, and what do you want to work on? So first of all, creative people who have the creative habits, who are consistently creative, take risks. They're not risk averse. Sometimes to their detriment, but they're always going out there. If you want to, a very interesting audio book by Malcolm Gladwell is called Miracle and Wonder, and he explores the music of Paul Simon by having Paul Simon play and sing his music. It's not a biography. It's a musical biography, and that is a guy who he would feel stuck, but he never felt contained. And part of it was he was willing to take musical risks, and he was constantly taking, like, probably his biggest flop after his biggest success with, if you ever heard Graceland or Music of the Saints, Rhythm of the Saints, right after that, he tried a Broadway play that just flopped. And then he went right back. He continued on after that. So taking risk is a huge piece. Challenging assumptions. We've always done it that way. Yeah. So when I was in grad school, I frustrated a lot of my fellow students because I would go out and say, all right, so this is what our school is teaching. What are other schools teaching? And so I could come in and say, this was in human development, college student affairs, social science. And I would always be coming in with, hey, what about this model? Or what about this? And the other students are going, well, what are you doing? That wasn't in the reading. I challenged the assumption that everything there was to know was in our reading. That's an assumption. But again, the idea that creative people who are habitually creative, they challenge assumptions. Think about it this way. What stories do you tell yourself? And which parts of those stories aren't true? We have notoriously bad memories. Like we only think about what we think about. And oftentimes there's so much more that happened in our life in that moment that creates the story we tell ourselves. And that's really just our unintentionally edited version of our past. And those are stories that we tell ourselves. You can go back, and maybe there's a story that you're telling yourself that's holding you back, saying that you're not creative or saying that we can't do that. You can go back and take a look at what's the source of that story, and are there any parts that are on the cutting room floor that could change how that story's told, how I tell that story to myself. So challenge assumptions. Explore. This is, again, a kid thing. Kids are natural explorers. They'll wander around, and giving yourself permission to leave the path. As an adult, sometimes that's really hard. Even if we're in a creative field, there's a path that's given to us, and the real creative people are the ones who step off that path. I still remember when I was doing outdoor education, we had a group of kids, and they were off doing something else, but we have a bunch of like field magnifying glasses. The parents grabbed them and started, like, most of the parents were pretty good. They're in the grass looking at bugs and all that kind of stuff. A couple of dads were over trying to burn a bug. We had to stop that. But again, it's exploring. So exploration. See differently. What else could this be? There's an exercise that I do where you sit around a table and everybody picks an object, and one person picks up an object and says, it starts with the saying, this is a pin. And then you hand it to the next person, what is this? And they have to say something else. They can't say it's a pin. They might say, so, Yeah, I turn to whoever's over next and I say, this is a pin. What is this? They grab it and say, this is a baton. And they go to the next person and say, what is this? This is history, because you write down stuff. And then what is this? And you go around and you're continually asking yourself, what is this? Because it's not what it is. This isn't a cup. It's not just a cup. It's not just a container. It's everything that it is. And that's a way to see things differently. Just stop every once in a while and ask yourself, what is this? Really? What else could it be? And we talk about play. You ever hear of the rock group, what is it, OK Go? They have the really great videos, okay? Like they did that. They're the ones who are dancing on the treadmills. And they do something I call sandboxing. And it's really committing to play. And there's one video that they did where they rented the zero gravity simulated airplane, also known as the Vomit Comet, that one that does parabolas. They rented that and put a bunch of stuff in it, and just said, let's see what happens. And that's how they basically generated their video, was by going and playing. They sandbox things. So if you are looking to diverge your thinking, playing with stuff is a great way to do it. And again, this goes back to everything's a toy when you're a kid. Even the stuff that's not supposed to be a toy. So let's talk about some creative tools. And these are divergent thinking exercises. When I do, when I'm teaching how to facilitate creativity, we get deeper into these things and also deeper into some of the more habit things. But if you want to practice this, if you want to let's talk about more ideas and let's talk about wild ideas. And both of those things are divergent. Both of those things take advantage of all of those creative habits. So more tools. How do you generate more ideas? Time. Give yourself an assignment and say, I'm going to write for 1 minute. I'm not going to stop. I'm just writing for 1 minute straight, and you keep going until that minute's up. And it doesn't have to be good. You just have to keep writing. The same thing goes with numbers. I'm going to write 15 ideas. They don't have to be good. It just has to be 15. And the best part come when you're dry, because then you have to push yourself to think. We talk about the thirds. The first thirds are stuff that's already there and you've already tried. The second third is the things that you've heard about, but you haven't done yourself. The third third is where it goes off the map, and that's where innovation really happens. So there's a story about this bakery who was doing some divergent thinking, and they're coming up, and somebody finally got out the wild idea. We'll get to wild ideas in a little bit. But they were just trying to do numbers and figure out, I think they were the third one, which is take a piece of paper, take a 11 by 17 piece of paper or a flip chart paper and fill it up. I mean, not with just big letters, but fill it up with ideas. And they were doing that. And they were dry. Somebody said donuts in space. And everybody just goes, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. And it'd be so expensive. Our finance guy would never approve it. And he looked at it and said, think about the marketing opportunities if it's say we had a donut on the moon. Well, they didn't get a donut to the moon, but they got a donut on the space shuttle. And that's what happens when you start to get to the wild ideas. So like lateral thinking or sideways thinking, De Bono has a great book called Lateral Thinking. It's just this idea of if you're thinking about things the way you always have thought about them, you'll get up the same results. But if you shift your thinking, you can do this. And the idea, like, think about, you get up in the morning and a helicopter picks you up and takes you to the other side of town. You don't drive that every day, but could you still make it to work? Could you still get to work if a helicopter dropped you off on the other side of town? Yeah, you could make it. And the great part is you would see different things. So if you're thinking about an idea and you want to think about different things, start from a different location. One idea is we'll do an exercise where, all right, you're on the, we'll do intergalactic thinking. You're on the snowboarding planet and you need to think about whatever, let's say you're talking about engagement. You're in the snowboarding planet. How would you get engagement on the snowboarding planet? Now you're going back through a different path to get there. It could be any kind of plan that you want. I was doing a coaching with an insurance executive, and she was like stuck. And we got to know each other a little bit, and I knew that she is a gardener. I said, okay, let's step back. How do you plant a garden? And she just whipped it out and said, boom, boom, boom. And then midway through, she goes, oh, I could make this plan like I plan a garden. And that's that lateral thinking, the sideways thinking. 180-degree thinking is always fun because it's deconstruction. So instead of let's go with this idea of how do you we'll stick with engagement. You think about we want to create engagement for this program that we're doing, and then 180-degree thinking is how would you destroy engagement? How would you make this the most disengaging experience possible? You write those things down and then you flip them back. And that's another way to generate new and wild ideas. And then limitless is this, what if you didn't have to worry about budget, time, or anything else? If you had no budget, you had no time constraints, what would you do? So those are tools to get you to more ideas and wild ideas.